Right. Let me be honest with you straight away. Over my 20 years working as a sexual health specialist, I've had countless consultations with men over 60, and there's one topic that comes up time and time again, yet hardly anyone talks about it openly. Masturbation after 60. There, I've said it. And here's the truth. Masturbation itself isn't the problem. It's a perfectly natural part of human sexuality at any age. But the way many men approach it after 60, that's where things can go quite wrong. And I mean genuinely damaging to both your physical health and your emotional well-being. Now, before you click away thinking this is going to be some awkward lecture, let me tell you what this is really about. This is about understanding your body as it changes, about maintaining your sexual health in a way that actually supports you rather than undermines you, and most importantly, it's about connection, presence, and quality of life. Because at 60, 70, 80 years old, you deserve to feel vital, connected, and at ease with yourself. I've seen brilliant, accomplished men sit in my consulting room, struggling to talk about this. Men who've raised families, built businesses, contributed to their communities, but when it comes to their intimate health, they feel lost, ashamed, or simply confused. And honestly, society hasn't given you much support in this area. We talk about women's health, menopause, all of that, quite openly now. But men's sexual health after 60, still largely taboo. Well, I think that's rubbish, and it's time we change that. So today I'm going to walk you through 4 specific errors I see men making with masturbation after 60. These aren't about morality or what's proper. These are about what actually works for your body at this stage of life, and what doesn't. And more than that, I'm going to give you practical solutions for each one, because knowing what's wrong without knowing how to fix it isn't particularly helpful, is it? Let me start with the first error, and it's by far the most common one I encounter. In fact, I'd say at least 70% of the men I see over 60 are making this mistake, often without even realizing it. Error number 1, relying on increasingly extreme pornography to achieve arousal. Now, I'm not here to lecture you about pornography as a moral issue. That's not my job. But I am here to explain what happens in your brain when you've been using pornography for years, particularly high-stimulation internet pornography, and how that impacts your body after 60. Here's what happens. Your brain operates on a chemical called dopamine. It's essentially your reward system, the thing that makes you feel pleasure and motivation. When you're younger, your dopamine system is like a brand new sports car, firing on all cylinders, incredibly responsive. But as you age, particularly after 60, your dopamine levels naturally decline. Your receptors become less sensitive. What used to feel exciting and stimulating now requires much more intensity to produce the same feeling. Now, combine this with decades of pornography use, especially the modern internet variety, where you can click from one video to another, constantly seeking that next hit of stimulation. Your brain becomes conditioned to need more and more novelty, more intensity, more extremity, just to feel something. I've had patients tell me they've gone from fairly vanilla content to things they never imagined they'd be interested in, simply because their brain needs that extra kick to respond. And here's the real kicker. This doesn't just affect your masturbation. It affects your ability to connect with a real partner. Your brain has been trained to respond to pixels on a screen, to impossible body standards, to scenarios that exist nowhere in real life. And then, when you're with your wife or partner, your body doesn't respond the way it should, because real intimacy can't compete with the artificial hyperstimulation you've trained yourself to need. I had a patient, lovely bloke, 68 years old, been married 42 years, came to see me because he couldn't maintain an erection with his wife anymore. After our conversation, it became clear he'd been using pornography daily for the past 15 years, and the content had become increasingly hardcore. His wife felt rejected, thought she wasn't attractive anymore. He felt broken, ashamed. But his body wasn't broken. His brain had just been rewired by years of artificial stimulation. So, what's the solution? And I know this is difficult to hear, but the solution is to disconnect from pornography entirely, at least for a substantial period. I typically recommend a minimum of 90 days, though some men need longer. Instead, and this is crucial, you need to reconnect with your own body, your own imagination, your own senses. Use your memory. Think about real experiences you've had, real connection with your partner. Use your imagination to create scenarios. Don't just consume them from a screen. This isn't about deprivation. It's about retraining your brain to respond to natural stimulation again, to reconnect with what's real. And honestly, most men who commit to this tell me that after the initial difficult period, their sensitivity increases, their enjoyment increases, and their ability to connect with their partner improves dramatically. Right, let's move on to error number 2. And this one's subtler, but in many ways more damaging to your overall well-being. Error number 2. Using masturbation as an emotional crutch rather than genuine pleasure. Let me explain what I mean. I've had countless men tell me they masturbate when they're stressed, bored, lonely, anxious, or can't sleep. It's become an automatic response to uncomfortable emotions, a way to numb out rather than actually feel something. And look, I understand the appeal. It's quick, it's private, it provides temporary relief. But here's what's actually happening. You're not dealing with the underlying issue. You're not processing the stress. You're not addressing the loneliness. You're not confronting the anxiety. You're just temporarily medicating yourself with orgasm. And over time, this pattern becomes compulsive. It's no longer about desire or pleasure. It's about escape. I've had men describe it as feeling empty immediately afterwards, feeling more depressed, more isolated, not less. Because in that moment, you're confronting the fact that you're alone, that you're using your body as a drug, that there's no real connection or satisfaction, just a brief neurochemical blip, and then back to the emptiness. This is particularly common in men who feel disconnected from their partners. And based on the comments from blokes watching content like this is incredibly widespread. Men telling me they feel alone even when they're in a relationship. Their wife hasn't shown interest in sex for years. They feel invisible, undesired, like their sexuality is an inconvenience or an embarrassment. So they retreat into masturbation, but it doesn't fill the void, it just reinforces it. One man told me, 62 years old, that his wife reached the peace of the senses about 10 years ago, as he put it. Hasn't been interested in sex since. He masturbates, feels depressed afterwards, feels like he's wasting the years he has left. He's even started seeing prostitutes 2 or 3 times a week because he's desperate for some kind of human connection, even if it's transactional. When he told me this, I could see the shame and sadness in his eyes, and I thought, this is what happens when we don't talk about these issues openly, when men feel they have nowhere to turn. So what's the solution here? First, you need to become aware of the pattern. Notice when you're reaching for masturbation as an escape versus when you're genuinely feeling desire. Start asking yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Am I anxious, lonely, bored? And then, and this is the hard part, sit with that feeling for a bit. Don't immediately medicate it away. Second, if you're in a relationship where intimacy has disappeared, you need to have an honest conversation with your partner. Not an accusatory one, not a demanding one, but an honest one about how you're feeling, about the connection you're missing, about whether there's a way forward together. Sometimes partners genuinely don't realize the impact their withdrawal has had. Sometimes there are medical or psychological reasons for their lack of interest that can be addressed, and sometimes the relationship needs professional support to navigate this. And if you're single, then the answer is about building genuine connection in your life in other ways. Community, friendship, meaningful activities. Your sexual health is connected to your overall emotional health. You can't separate them. Error number 3, and this one directly impacts your physical health. Error number 3, masturbating too quickly, with too much pressure, too frequently, without awareness of your body's actual needs. Let me tell you what I hear constantly from men over 60. I'm not as hard as I used to be. I ejaculate too quickly. I struggle to recover. And when I ask about their masturbation habits, there's usually a pattern. Quick sessions, firm grip, racing to climax. Sometimes multiple times a day. Treating it like a task to tick off rather than an experience to enjoy. Here's what's happening physiologically. After 60, your body needs more time to recover between orgasms. Your cardiovascular system isn't as resilient. Your prostate may be enlarged. Your testosterone levels are lower. If you're masturbating the same way you did when you were 30, with the same frequency and intensity, you're putting strain on your body that it can no longer handle as easily. The firm grip, in particular, causes what we call death grip syndrome. You train your body to only respond to a level of pressure that no human body can replicate. Then, when you're with a partner, you can't climax, or you can't maintain an erection because the stimulation isn't intense enough. You've literally desensitized yourself. And the rushing? That trains your body to ejaculate prematurely. You're reinforcing a neural pathway that says arousal equals immediate climax, which is the exact opposite of what you want for satisfying sexual experiences, whether alone or with a partner. I had a patient, 77 years old, lovely man, came to me concerned because when he masturbated, he noticed he had difficulty. And afterwards there was barely any semen, just clear watery fluid. He asked if this was just his age. And yes, production does decrease with age, but it shouldn't be quite that dramatic. When we discussed his habits, he was masturbating daily, sometimes twice daily, with a very firm grip and finishing quickly. His body simply couldn't keep up with the demand. So here's the solution, and it's actually quite simple, though it requires patience. Slow down. Drastically. I mean it. Take 20-30 minutes if you can. Use a light touch. Focus on the sensations in your entire body, not just your genitals. Practice what's called edging, bringing yourself close to orgasm, and then backing off several times before you actually climax. This builds control, increases sensitivity, and makes the experience far more pleasurable, and reduce the frequency. This isn't about deprivation, it's about giving your body time to recover, to build up proper arousal again. Quality over quantity. One really satisfying session per week is worth far more than 7 rushed mechanical ones. Pay attention to your body's signals. If you're struggling to get aroused or to climax, that's your body telling you it needs more time. Listen to it. Your body is incredibly wise if you actually tune in and stop trying to force it to perform like it's still 25. Right. Now for error number 4, and this might be the most important one, even though it sounds the least technical. Error number 4, thinking that masturbation at your age doesn't matter, that it's insignificant, that how you relate to your sexuality now has no impact on your quality of life. I hear this all the time. Men saying, well, I'm 65, 70, whatever. Does it really matter anymore? Why change now? And my answer is always the same. It matters because your sexuality is connected to your vitality, your sense of self, your relationships, your confidence, your mood, your physical health. It's not some separate compartment you can ignore. The choices you make with your body today aren't just about preventing problems, they're about creating the quality of life you want for the years ahead. And you have years ahead. Men are living into their 80s, 90s, remaining active and engaged. Your sexuality is part of that engagement with life. When you approach masturbation mindfully, when you do it in a way that honors your body rather than uses it, when you maintain that connection with your own sensuality, it keeps you present, vital, connected to yourself. And that translates into everything else. How you relate to your partner, how you carry yourself, how you experience joy and pleasure in all aspects of life. I think about the men I've worked with who've made these changes. There's a lightness to them afterwards, a sense of ease. They're not carrying around shame or compulsion or disconnect anymore. They're more present with their partners. They report feeling more confident, more alive. And that's what this is really about, isn't it? Living fully at every age. One thing I want to address specifically, because I know many of you watching this will be in this situation. What if you don't have a partner? Several men have asked me this, and it's a valid question. If you're single, widowed, divorced, the principles I've outlined still apply. In fact, they might be even more important, because you're not going to suddenly find yourself in a fulfilling sexual relationship if you've trained your body and mind into unhealthy patterns. Masturbation, done mindfully, can be a way of maintaining your sexual health and vitality, so that if and when you do meet someone, you're actually capable of intimacy. It's about self-respect, about treating your body and sexuality with care, whether or not there's someone else involved. And honestly, learning to be comfortable with your own body, to find pleasure without needing extreme stimulation, to be present with yourself, that's valuable in its own right. It's a form of self-knowledge and self-care that enhances your entire life. Now, I also want to address something that came up in comments from men watching content like this. What about women? Several people asked about whether women face similar issues after 60. And the answer is yes, absolutely. Women's sexuality changes after menopause. There are different challenges and considerations. It's equally important and equally under-discussed. Perhaps that's content for another conversation, but I mention it because it highlights how much work we still need to do in talking openly about sexuality and aging for everyone. So let me bring this all together. The 4 errors: relying on pornography, using masturbation as emotional escape, being too rough and quick, and thinking it doesn't matter. And the solutions: disconnect from artificial stimulation and reconnect with your senses. Address your emotional needs directly. Slow down and be gentle with your body. And recognize that your sexuality is an integral part of your well-being at every age. This isn't about shame. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you've been making these errors, you're not broken, you're not perverted, you're not failing. You're simply doing what seemed to work in the moment, without necessarily understanding the long-term impact. But now you do understand, and that means you can make different choices. And the beautiful thing, at 60, 70, 80 years old, you still have the power to change. Your brain remains plastic, capable of forming new patterns. Your body remains responsive, capable of healing and adapting. It's never too late to develop a healthier relationship with your sexuality. I really hope this has been helpful rather than uncomfortable. These conversations matter. Your well-being matters. And if even one of you makes a change after watching this that improves your life, improves your relationships, improves how you feel about yourself, then this was worth having. If you found this valuable, please share it. I guarantee you know other men who need to hear this, even if they'd never ask for it themselves. Leave a comment below if you're comfortable, whether it's a question, a reflection, or just an acknowledgement that this resonates. Sometimes just knowing you're not alone in this makes all the difference. And do hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content. Remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about awareness, about treating yourself with respect and care, about staying connected to your own vitality. You deserve that, no matter your age. Take care of yourselves, all of you.